Good day. Let's move on to the second of these videos, which I'm doing about blunders committed in World Championship matches. Now, in the first game, we went over the blunder in the Steinitz-Chigorin match. Now, what I'm going to try and do is probably do one blunder per World Championship match, just to get a sort of a flavour, say a tour of the different World Championship matches there have been. Later on, I may have to go back and fill in the gaps, because sometimes there's been more than one quite classic blunder in each World Championship match. One thing I forgot to do last week was I was going to sort of do a ranking of these blunders, and maybe later on I'll do a tier list. I haven't quite worked out how to do that, but as I get a bit more proficient with streaming, I should be able to do that. Now, the thing about the blunder from last week, Steinitz's blunder, that probably is sort of a very solid sort of 3-star blunder, right? It lost in the game, but the game was kind of drawn and he lost the game. Didn't really impact the World Championship match because he won fairly comfortably anyway. So you get a bit of a sense of the way I'm looking at these blunders as we go through time. Now, this blunder this week is a little bit more complicated than last week's one, but actually it ends up being ranked, as we'll see later, as a 4-star blunder, because it was a game which Steinitz was winning, and the blunder allowed Chigorin to totally back in the game and let him win the game, right? So that's kind of the worst type of blunder. We've got a few of those where it's win to loss or loss to win. Now, so I'll move now onto my page here. So this is the game we're going to look at. It's going to be game 13 of the 1889 match between Chigorin and Steinitz. Actually, to start off with, this was regarded as going to be quite a good championship match. Steinitz, sort of dogmatic, sort of new style of play, and Chigorin, sort of a bit more old school attacking play. And he was probably the favourite going into the match. But as you can see, Steinitz there is the red line on the top right chart. Steinitz won fairly comfortably in the end, and what was it, 10.5 to 6.5, I think it is. The other thing you'll notice is this game was at 20 games and first person reached 10.5, rather than counting wins and losses. As I say, these sorts of things will vary through time. The thing to note about is that apart from the very last game, which was a draw, every single game in this match was decisive, which is quite unusual in the scheme of things, particularly now. So quite sort of attacking play, let us say. And the other thing to notice is the number of blunders in this match, right? The game 5 blunder by Chigorin, I'll probably go revisit because it was pretty bad. We're looking at game 13, which is the blunder by Steinitz, which he was winning a game and he lost it. And then you can see there's a few other blunders dotted around. You'll notice there are 2 X's on some particular games where one player blundered and then another player blundered, or maybe the blunder was more than 500 points, but the game was already totally over at that stage, right? So you look at game 12, for instance, you can see Steinitz and Chigorin both blundered, but Steinitz won that game. And then the bottom right chart, you can see the evaluation through this game. So, which just gives you a sense of what I was kind of getting at, is that out of the opening, Steinitz, you can see the blue eval. Steinitz is black, and he's like plus piece, basically plus piece all the way through for about 20 or 30 moves. And then the blunder we look at, suddenly it flipped, and then he finally lost the game. So that's why this is probably one of those sort of the worst type of blunder. Although it didn't really affect the World Championship match, because although it closed the gap a little bit, Steinitz maintained his lead and went on to win. Okay, so we'll just sort of get into preparation here. I think it was an Evans Gambit. Quite too sure about that. And then so Chigorin has been trying to attack for some time, trying to get openings, and you can see, but black's pretty solid position and a little bit area on the white squares on the king side. So he plays a check, which is blocked, and then he moves back to h4, putting pressure on the sort of key square, f6 pawn, sorry, f6 pawn. Maybe that color's better. So the question is, does black need to do anything to deal with it? He didn't in the end, which is error. He played rook a5, and maybe just spend a few minutes. I mean, you can pause the video if you like, and have a look what is wrong with this move. I mean, it looks like f6 pawn is protected, but there's more to it than that, right? So stop the video, have a look, think about the analysis. Anyway, so what black should have done is black should have, just let me go back, black should have covered the pawn. That's the most natural thing to do. Everything's covered, and key square's protected. Game goes on. Steinitz effectively a piece up. However, in the game, black played rook to a4, which does attack the c4 knight, which is unprotected, but he didn't address the issue of the previous queen move, which is now attacking the f6 square. And although it's protected by the queen at the moment, what black missed out, what Steinitz missed, was a fairly simple tactic. If you look at it, white has 3 pieces attacking the d6 square. Obviously, only the queen and the knight are protecting it, and white just piled in there. In fact, the previous move, rook a5, has changed the evaluation of the position from -3 to +4 or +5, depending on how long you let the engines run. So this is the tactic that was missed. So white plays rook to d6. Now this puts black in quite a dilemma. Obviously what's going on there is it's now screened the queen from covering the f6 square, so the f6 square is now on pre, and the queen is attacked. Now in the game, black took the knight with the rook. The other alternative was to sacrifice the queen, but this doesn't work very well. Just quickly go through this line. Rook takes knight, add variation. So the line is white will take the queen, bishop will take the rook back. So you look at that position, okay, so it's like black has a lot of material for the queen, but as we come in, queen takes f6, threatening a very nasty check on h8. And there's a couple of responses here. Bishop takes e4 is supposed to be the best, but let's just continue the line. Queen h8 check. King moves up, only move. Queen takes pawn, check. Obviously this king goes back, there's a check, the knight falls. It's supposed to be mate eventually anyway, so king f6 is the line given. I'm just following computer analysis here. Check with the queen, king back to f7. Check on the f-file, block with the bishop. Now just pick up the knight, and I don't believe that the position is very good. I mean, it's still given as +5 for white in this position. I mean, obviously the black king is quite exposed. e4 is coming, and the rook and the queen probably combine to give a checkmate or win a lot of material very soon. So that was the alternative, but black went the other way. So the obvious move, knight takes rook. So, but now knight takes knight is check. Now, so can't sacrifice the queen in this situation. That's just terrible. If we move this way, which wasn't played in the game, then we just take the pawn with check. And the problem with this position is that, okay, over and above the fact that it's probably checkmate soon, is that black can't hold on to the rook. The knight's covering that square. King has to move away. Can't go there. It's checkmate. So that's obviously a very bad alternative, right? So what the king has to do is the king has to run to d8. Now we're back on the game continuation. We take f6. Threatening quite a killer check on f8. Nothing really to be done here. All turns about the same. Black retreated to a5, which actually gives the option of taking the c5 pawn. We'll see that in a minute. So check there. You've got a couple of choices. Bishop e8, knight f7 check. Double check. That doesn't look good. So interpose with the rook, which also doesn't look good. Best move supposedly king c7, but you can see it's not looking very good. So we take the rook with the knight, and here black took the queen. Now what white should have done here would have just keep the queen on the board. Add a variation, add that one in there. So just like there's a killer discovered check on the horizon. Black can have a bit of fun, take a pawn, we'll just hide in the corner. And actually the best move for black here is given as queen d4. Okay, fine. So actually don't take it straight away. Make the king move. Now take the queen. You can see that white is well ahead on material. So that was the alternative at this point. White should have just kept the queens on the board and be easily winning. He did win in the end, but his next move wasn't the best, right? He took the queen, so now queens are off the board. Got this bishop here, which is pinned, so we threatened to win that. Only move, black has got to come back to protect it. And I think, well, white could take it now, but obviously white's got to spend one move to unpin, so the idea is move your king, start moving your king to the queen side, which is where the action is. We'll let the pieces get exchanged, and then king moves, and then now everything is taken off. Now look at this position, it's quite interesting. It's an easy win for white, and the reason for it is he's got these two pawns here, which they are very helpful to cover those squares. And also over here we've got this weak pawn, which actually from this position white can just go and pick up, and once you've got the outside passed pawn, and this actually blocking the black king getting counterplay on the king side to a large degree, it's just sort of trivially winning. So let's see what happens. White marched over the queen side, black did the same thing. Now just highlight that in sort of the traditional if you had a traditional block pawns, then you have these three squares here would be traditionally regarded as the critical squares for that pawn. If white's king get to those squares, then he's able to shoulder the black king away and take the pawn. It's even easier in this situation because these e-pawns are actually taking away even more squares, and the king can't run around to the whatever the equivalent of the file to the left of the A file is. So just bear that in mind. We're going to actually get to those squares. King there, we're already on one of them. King there, and king to c3. So now, if the black king went to a4, which he didn't do, then white would simply move to c4, and then the black king can't go anywhere. There's some tempo moves over here, but white has enough tempo moves in return. And then what would happen is simply that the black king would have to pull back, and then the white king could then move and pick up the pawn, which is kind of the situation we end up in. Anyway, so let's have a look at the game went. Okay, something's happened then. Okay, so he did tempo move h5. Okay, doesn't want to do king b3, so move across to get the pawn. Another tempo move, just grab the pawn. Now king makes a run for it. Just to be on the safe side, white sort of tracks back to make sure he can cover it if required, but obviously that pawn's gone, right? I mean, black could now circle back, but chasing that he'd lose the e-pawn. Not much to do. Black keeps on diving in, pawn goes through. No need to continue to the end. So you can see what's happened there is that this mistake by black or Steinitz in the middle of the game threw away a position. He was a piece up, and then now he was, a valuation of 5 down. Chigorin gave him a little bit of a look in, but basically the game remained winning for white all the way through. Hope you found that analysis quite interesting, and next time we'll be doing one of the next World Cup Championship blunders. Thank you for watching.